to have Donald Trump. He is currently a candidate for the Republican nomination for President of the United States. Mr. Trump, thank you very much for joining us on the initial Breitbart News Daily Show.
Well, that's such an honor. The initial show, wow. We'll have to mark this one down for posterity, Steve. Very good. Congratulations. Good luck. You'll do well.
Well, thank you, sir. Look, one of the things is that, very early on in this process, in places like New Hampshire and Iowa, we were very honored to have you come on our weekend show, or when we were doing those 6 or 7 hour marathons. And we were telling people at the time, I said, look, this guy is, people are leaning forward in these audiences when he was talking. Of course, we were mocked and ridiculed, and what are you guys doing? This is a joke. In fact, the Sunday show, Tom Rose and Gary Bauer tell the story how they were laughing at me when I was saying, "Hey, this guy Trump is going to be very serious." So it's good to see that you're in the heat of combat now.
Well, I remember that well, and oftentimes with you, especially because I'd always mess up my hair when I put those big microphones around. You'd always say, "Oh, could you put them on?" So I'd mess up my hair, which is fine. But I remember that you looked and you said, "Boy, those are big crowds you're getting. You have more than anybody else by far." I said, "Steve, I'm telling you, just watch." And, now we're getting, we had 20,000 in Dallas. We filled up an arena in 3 days. Mark Cuban's arena where the Mavericks play, and 35,000 in Alabama and 20,000 in Oklahoma. And about Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina have been unbelievable with the crowd. So we've really, we've had a lot of fun talking about very negative subjects, because everything is negative with the country, Steve. There's nothing good happening. There's nothing positive happening. We don't win anymore. So
what is it about the message that, whether it was a year and a half or 2 years ago when you first started this and started going to these events Dave Bossie was putting on in New Hampshire and in Iowa, what is it about the message that you think is resonating most with the American people now, that's drawing bigger and bigger crowds and clearly a lot of enthusiasm, and has you at the top in many of the polls?
Yeah, I think the big message is make America great again. And, I built a great company. In fact, as you know, a lot of people said, well, he won't run. Then I ran. Then I filed different papers. Then they said, well, maybe he won't file his financials. Maybe he's not as rich as we thought. It turned out I was much richer. I built a great company, like an unbelievable. In fact, Steve, I might have filed him anyway, to be honest with you. I think I might have filed him even if I didn't run. So, people have seen what.
You mean just to shut the critics up? Say, hey,
yeah. Well, I was having people, well, maybe he's not that rich. But, that file, they expose everything. You know it. It was 100 pages of financial information. And I gave and by the way, the biggest one ever filed, I think, was 2 pages. Okay. I was I think it was close to 100 pages.
By the way, on the disclosure, I could tell people, he said, they're arguing about his net worth. I said, listen, the cash and marketable securities, which is the acid test, I think is $450 million. Is 2x Mitt Romney's total net worth. So when people talk about it, I said, just go to the cash and marketable securities. That's liquidity.
Many hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. And the assets are the best. The buildings in Manhattan, Turnberry in Scotland, one of the great places of the world, and Doral in Miami. There's hundreds of acres of land right next to the airport in Miami. The whole thing. They're great assets, but I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way. I'm saying, or I should say in a braggadocious way. I'm saying it because that's the kind of a mentality that we need in the country. We don't make good deals anymore. If you look at what we're doing with China, if you look at what we're doing with all these countries, I use China because they're the biggest abuser of the United States.
Okay, I want to get into this deals for a second, because look, in being trained at the of course, I went to the poets version of business school, Harvard. I know you went to Wharton, where you got to know math. You have to know the math, right?
But you actually have to know the math.
But at Goldman Sachs, they always teach about negotiating leverage, operating leverage. Last night or over the weekend, the campaigns have now taken direct control of these debates, and that is because I've been telling people. I said, hey, the leverage here is Donald Trump's and Ben Carson's and a couple of them. They have the leverage, not the RNC. They've cut bad deals. The same logic applies to China and Iran and throughout the world. The United States has been a punching bag. Let's go back to the RNC thing first. What exactly have you guys done to kind of say, hey, look, would I'd rather have Reince Priebus or Donald Trump negotiate my deal with the networks? What have you guys actually done? Because the New York Times is kind of saying, they're going to have a little bit of openings. We've been saying it's much deeper, it's much more profound, and this is a seminal moment.
Well, it started really with CNN, because we had a 2-hour debate, and then I got to the place, and they said, oh, congratulations, it's 3 hours. And as you remember, it was extremely hot, and it was a very terriu situation.
You don't think that's anything but about trying to sell some additional ad time for a network that's hurt?
No, not a little bit. 100%. I made a fortune. Steve, the ads were $4,000 for a 30-second ad. They got $200,000 and $250,000. Okay, they sold out the first 2 hours. It was a 2-hour debate. They sold out. They announced a couple of days early, without anybody's approval. I didn't even know about it until I got there, that it would be 3 hours, and they sold out that. They made a fortune.
Jeff Zucker's trying to hit a quarterly number. You got to give a brother a break here.
CNN, and Jeff Zucker's great, and I don't blame him. But I said, well, I won't go in the debate. And I'll tell you what, not because of me. I could stand up there for 30 hours. You know me well, okay? I could stand up as longer than anybody. The problem is, the audience isn't going to watch 3 hours. You know, Gone with the Wind is 3 hours, all right? The audience doesn't want to watch a 3-hour debate. It's ridiculous. But they made a fortune with it. And I said, I'll never let it happen again. So what happened is the same thing with CNBC. It was a 2-hour debate. And lo and behold, as you read, they were getting $250,000 for a 30-second commercial that they were getting a couple of $1,000s for in the last cycle. I wonder if that had anything to do with. Now, you went to Harvard. Do you think that had anything to do?
No, that was a totally random event.
It was just by luck. It just happened to happen that way, right? So anyway,
by the way, CNBC. Hold on, CNBC, the biggest audience in 30 years of broadcasting, by what, 10x the biggest audience they ever had.
Yeah, by 10 million people, and and look, I don't want to take credit for it, but I will. But frankly. Everybody, Variety, everybody said it was. So, I figure I have some leverage. So I called up. Not some leverage.
Yeah, you and Carson, no. You and Carson have all the leverage. If you and Carson don't show up, there's not a debate, right?
And by the way, they were great. Their team was great. My team knows their team and called them up and said, listen, this is ridiculous. They want to put us on again for 3 hours, only because of commercials. It has nothing to do with the people or anything else. And I was able to negotiate in, let's say, 3 minutes, 3 seconds. I said, listen, I'm not showing up. And I threw in Ben Carson. I said, I'm not showing up, and neither is Carson. We're not going unless it's a 2-hour debate. They said, okay, we'll make it a 2 hour. That was it. I mean, it was like, now, if the country would negotiate the same way, like the Iran deal is one of the worst deals I've ever seen negotiated of any kind. Forget about country deals. I mean, one of the dumbest deals I've ever seen negotiated of any kind.
But I want to talk about the mentality, because I think you see the same mentality. No, it's the mentality of the RNC that you got to play. Look, the media is the Praetorian Guard of the permanent political class. All the consultants that come after you and Dr. Carson and Ted Cruz all day long, the permanent political class's consultants, they're all in bed together, right? They all want they want to. By the way, the same mentality of the RNC is the same mentality. You've got Froman, the trade negotiator. We just had Nigel Farage on. They're over there saying, oh, by the way, if you leave the EU, we're not going to cut a bilateral deal with you. Yeah. These guys, the same mentality, they don't know what negotiating leverage is, whether it's China, whether it's Mexico. They mock you because you said, hey, I'm going to build a wall and they're going to pay for it.
Oh, 100% they'll pay, Steve. By the way, 100%. Do you know what we lose on Mexico a year? $45 billion in trade. We have an imbalance with Mexico, $45 billion. The wall's going to cost, they said it was going to cost 12. I can build it for 6, and it'll be bigger, better, and stronger. I'm building the old post office right now in Pennsylvania.
You can't miss it. It's got everybody obsessed. You got the big Trump. You got the big Trump.
Everyone said that's a political post. I said no, it's a hotel. It's opening in 2016. By the way, it's 1 year ahead of schedule. It's going to open in 2017. I said we can't do that. So it's 1 year ahead of schedule. It'll open up in September next year of 20. How about that timing?
But very random. By the way, a stunning building. It's absolutely a stunning building on Pennsylvania.
It's the greatest hotel in the United States. I mean, it really was incredible. And the amazing thing, and nobody's ever mentioned this, and I'm fine with it, but in the Obama administration, as you know, they run the GSA, and the people at the GSA are terrific people, by the way, very professional people. But to think that Trump got it, it was the most more people, as you can imagine, location. It's the best, this incredible building in the best location. And Trump got it. How did Trump get it over Hyatt, Pritzker? How did Trump get it over, Pritzker's his biggest contributor. How did Trump get it?
Well, Secretary of Commerce, I think, right?
Well, that's why, because they didn't get that. Right. So he gave her Secretary of Commerce. That's what happened, in my opinion. They were not happy when they didn't get it. But anyway, what we're building there is going to be incredible. But here's the thing. We're under budget and ahead of schedule. Wouldn't it be nice if the country could do it? It's the same thing with CNBC. Everybody said, oh, they won't cut it. There's no cut it. There's no provision. I said, that's okay. Let me give it a shot. I made the call, and one of my guys made the call. Corey, who's terrific, who's a big fan of yours, by the way. And
your campaign manager. Yeah.
Great. Within 3 minutes, they agreed. And we were told, that they would never agree to it. Now, they took a big loss. I said, here's what you do. Double the price of your commercial.
Right. Supply. Here's what I learned at Wharton. Supply and demand.
Yeah.
raise your price.
I said, if you've sold out this early, your price is too cheap, even at $250,000 for 30 seconds.
But what got you guys then to decide we just got to cut the RNC out, right? We just got to cut the RNC and directly negotiate with the networks themselves. What got you to move to that after CNBC cratered on the
John Harwood is a sleaze. And I knew that. But he interviewed me 2 weeks before, and he was very nice. He couldn't have been nicer. Very nice interview. Soft, easy, nice. But I still didn't trust him. And I figured, because he was asking me to do it, and he was one of the mutters, I sat down for an interview with John, and I guess it was on it was on CNBC, and that was fine. But it was a normal interview, nothing spectacular. And then all of a sudden, he starts with me with the first question, okay? And it wasn't the question, is what he said during the question, And then I actually thought the one that they hit was me. And of course I can say the same thing in all fairness for Fox, and I can say the same thing to a lesser extent, for CNN. I think, I guess that. But the fact is that when he hit me like that, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I said, that is disgusting. And he was so nice. In other words, it was a little bit of a setup because he was so nice 2 weeks before with the interview. So I said, very unfair. But it wasn't really me, because I don't mind the tough question. Did you see every online poll had me winning the debate? Did you notice that?
Yeah, I saw that. Yep, the Drudge poll particularly. Yep.
Even CNBC had me winning the debate. That's sort of an amazing thing. The only way I didn't win the debate is some of the pundits that are going absolutely crazy that I'm leading in the polls. They can't, they're going crazy. Their whole lives are at stake, it seems. They should loosen up a little bit. But, so that was the story. I thought the moderators just didn't do it. I like Becky Quick, by the way. I really do.
Well, you've been on CNBC a lot, but
I like Becky and I like Carl. The other Harwood is not a good guy. He's not a good.
But is going forward this negotiation? Are you guys going to try to change structure, format? You've got the leverage. The networks. If a network doesn't like it, you say, hey, look, guys, we're just drop the debate. We're going to do something. We'll go to somebody else.
We have the leverage. Think of it. They're making a fortune off of us. Like, for instance, when CNN did their extended version without anybody knowing about it until we got. I literally didn't know about
the incremental third hour.
Yeah. Now I heard they announced it a day before or 2 days before, but I literally didn't. I got there and I say, "How long is this?" By the way, it's a 2 hour. No. They walked in. They said it's a 3 hour debate. I said, "What do you mean a 3 hour? It wasn't agreed to." When they did that, I said we should immediately strike, and we should ask. I'm like a union worker now. Hey, Steve, we should immediately strike, and we should ask for that extra hour. At least 50% of that money comes to the RNC, comes to the Republican Party, okay? Or, what I really said, and you know I said this, let it go to the wounded warriors, let it go to the veterans, all of the money that they made. And I really wanted to do that, but we didn't really have enough time. It's a little bit tough when they say, you're on in 15 minutes. You understand that.
It's the mentality, though, of saying, hey, we don't have to play by a set of rules. When you first said, hey, we're the United States, we should get the best deals, I will get you the best deals, you were mocked and ridiculed, guys saying, hey, he's not a real estate developer, he wants to be president of the United States. But the same logic applies, whether it's China or Mexico or Iran or the EU.
Or Bergdahl.
We've been pushed around by everybody.
We get Bergdahl, they get 5 killers that they've wanted for 8 years, okay? Okay, that's the way we negotiate. I don't want Bergdahl. Send them back, drop them back in the middle of the place. But we get Bergdahl, a traitor. They get 5 killers. What kind of a deal? That's the way we deal. What
would you do different? What would you do different as president of the United States and commander in chief in this area of really representing American interests versus people like countries like China, like Mexico, like Iran, like the EU?
Well, many things, Steve. Number one, I have a natural way of negotiating, okay? And I know the greatest negotiators. They're friends and enemies of mine. I have enemies and I have friends, okay? And, we're too predictable as a country. Everyone says, like even sending these 50 guys in. What do we have to announce that we're sending them in, okay? these guys are in great danger now because they're going to be looking for them. Why can't we just send them in and not say anything? Because,
a whole new concept, kind of like FDR ran World War II, right? I don't think we tell the Germans, here's what we're going to do. Don't telegraph
Every
it.
time we do something, we have to announce it, okay? Because he's just a political guy who's doing a horrible job as president. He's the worst president ever. He's doing a horrible job. So instead of sending 50 guys in that are top guys, these are really great guys, right? But they're in great danger because this enemy is not stupid. They're now looking for these 50 guys. Why didn't we just send them in and not say anything? Because he has to talk because everything's politics. But basically, if you look at it's everything. It's everything. It's military. It came out in all the polls that I'd be by far the best on financial and the economy, and they said I'd be by far the best on the military, and I would be the best on the military. But what you have to do is you have to get the right people in to negotiate. Now, Carl Icahn endorsed me. You know Carl, okay? And Carl
pretty tough hombre.
Pretty tough hombre, okay? Great, built a tremendous fortune. He doesn't want money. I mean, he doesn't want a fee. He wants to do it because he wants to do it. I mean, number one, he loves the country. Number two, it's a challenge for him. He's tired with all these deals. He does deals. He does great.
Just what China wants to know is that Carl Icahn is going to be negotiating across the table from him.
Well, I laugh as I tell, and some people don't know who he is. In the audience, they're not sure. I said, just trust me. So we put Carl. I say, Carl, do me a favor. You negotiate with China. Look over the trade packs. Read the I say, folks, go home, relax, have dinner. Just don't worry about it anymore. It's going to be fine.
Well, let me ask you about that. One of the big issues in this campaign is going to be trade. Although CNBC didn't want to talk about TPP. You're a guy. Whether you're financing, building a hotel, acquiring a property, buying a distressed asset, the contract is everything because all the reality exists in the contract. That's just the way. That's the way. By the way, the rule of law. Right. In TPP, you have these massive trade deals that are, as you know, enormously complicated with 10, 12, 15 countries. The other guys can jump in. It's in a secret vault. You can only go down there part of the time. You can't fully vet it. With you as president or commander in chief, would you allow us to get into these multilateral trade deals that are so complex where you can't fully vet all the details in the deal itself?
In my opinion, that deal was made for China. China's going to come in through the back door. China's going to come in and take advantage of that deal through the back door. You watch it. Sure. I'm very much opposed to that deal. First of all, we should be making trade deals with individual countries, not as a big group like that. We should be doing
the way the founders had it set up. Do bilateral trade agreements and then bring them back to the Senate. Trump brings it back to the Senate and gets his bilateral trade deal with Taiwan or with Japan approved by 2/3 of the Senate.
Steve.
And you have to go argue, hey, this is why this is a good deal. And that's the way the founders wanted it.
Look, in that group, we've had countries that treat us badly. And we've had countries where we get along well with them, and it's been fine. Well, the ones that treat us badly are getting the benefits of the deal because of the ones that treat us well. But the whole thing is crazy. But here's the worst part. Monetary manipulation. They manipulate their currencies, right? It's not even covered in the deal. The single greatest weapon that all of these countries have and use against us, whether it's Japan or China or Brazil, anybody, is currency manipulation, okay? They manipulate their currency. They downgrade it. I mean, it doesn't sound good, but it sure as hell works. And the greatest one in history for currency manipulation has been China in history. They're the great geniuses of this. So it's not even covered in the trade deal. And a group came to me. I don't even know if you were involved with this group, but a group came to me, and they didn't even want my money. They wanted me to do a radio commercial, a big radio. They spent a lot of money on it, talking about this, and they actually took the commercial. I did it. I was like the voice. I was the host of the commercial, which is a little bit different. But there are tremendous numbers of very smart people that are totally against this deal. This deal is a disaster. But the single biggest point is not even mentioned in the agreement. And frankly, most people don't even know what is mentioned, because if you want to see the agreement, you can't even read it. So I know you're against it. I think it's a horror show. It's great for a few companies that pushed it very hard and have very powerful lobbyists, some of whom I know, by the way, and they got it through. It's incredible.
Well, I know it's going to be fully vetted in this camp. They're trying to kick it past the primary season, but I know that you and others, Senator Sessions, I know Ted Cruz, I know others are going to get to drill down on the details.
It's a horrible deal.
We've got so much more to ask you. I want to, hopefully later in the week, get you back to talk about H-1B visas and the whole situation down at Disney and all that. Sure. There's so much going on. I really appreciate your time. I know you're incredibly busy. And if you want to follow Donald Trump, just go to the pages of Breitbart. It's up there every day what's going on. Tremendous deal you just cut with getting the RNC out of the TV business.
Well, they're going to be, and by the way, Reince is a very good guy, but this takes a lot of pressure off him, frankly, and we know how to negotiate, and it'll be a much fairer situation.
I think if you had a choice between Reince Priebus, as nice a guy as he is, and Donald Trump cutting your the TV deal, I think most people would take Donald Trump.
Well, I'm not allowed to say that, okay? So I'm not. But I can tell you he's a very good guy. He really is. He's a very nice person, and I think that he is hopefully he's going to do a good job. Hey, look, you get a candidate, you really need that RNC to go in there and fight hard. And they have to be very tough and very smart. You have this crazy, Wasserman Schultz, Deborah Wasserman Schultz, who is in there, a highly neurotic woman. This is a woman that is a terrible person. I watch her on television. She is a terrible person. And in all fairness, she negotiated a great deal for Hillary because they gave Hillary all softballs.
Unbelievable.
Every ball was a softball.
Unbelievable.
And in fact, the other candidates weren't even allowed to talk up against her. How about, and by the way, he destroyed his campaign, Sanders. He totally destroyed his campaign.
He destroyed two guys. And by the way, two guys quit the day after. Dude, Webb and Chafee just threw the talents, and I'm out of here.
Well, when Sanders gave up the emails, that was the end. I said, he's dead. That's the end of him.
That's the tell.
He gave that up. It was a great soundbite for about 3 minutes, for 3 seconds. They clapped for about 3 seconds. When he gave up the emails, he is now just wasting his time. He's going around. By the way, his audience have shrunk. Now he's got to take ads and everything else. His audiences have gone. And I have by far the biggest audiences even before. But his audiences are gone now. When he gave up that email thing, he said, "Here, Hillary." And you know what? That was orchestrated by the Democratic Party, or as you